talking about what responsibilities citizens have to the nation. I go back to John Kennedy's speech in 1961. I still recall. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. When we've had an increasing number of people not stumbling economically and needing a hand up, but learning to live off the system, and living pretty well, I might add, off the taxpayers, and if that includes the use of narcotics, alcohol abuse, tobacco, other things that would harm them, I don't see how they're going to get back into our good graces as part of our economic system anytime soon. The answer is yes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Antonori, please.
When I was in the Arizona State House, I introduced a bill to require all welfare recipients in the state of Arizona to go through random drug testing. When I got sent to the Senate, I introduced that same bill again. If I'm in Washington, I will introduce it again. I will amend it to include elected officials as well. I think everyone should get that.
Spoke with a gentleman right before this event that said they are currently doing this to our veterans who are receiving care with certain pharmaceuticals. So we are currently living in a country where the people who fought and laid down their lives for this nation are being drug tested, and those who are smoking and drinking with taxpayer money are not. I think it's a no-brainer. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. McSally.
I was subjected to drug testing for 26 years, wearing the uniform, and as a squadron commander, I had to subject my troops to it as well. I believe in freedom, opportunity, and personal responsibility. The whole idea of welfare is about giving a hand up and not a handout. And so if people are just on that dime there, they need to make sure that they are definitely off alcohol and drugs. So absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. McSally. Thank you, Mr. Shumway. Mr. Hastings, will you please say your first question?
Thank you, Mr. China. My first question is for you, Mr. Antonori. When elected, what energy policies would you support to reduce our current dependency on foreign oil?
Well, the first thing I would do is make sure we have a president that has an energy policy to reduce our dependency on foreign oil. The second thing I would do is provide the adequate legislation to enable that to be done, to support his policies, to include expanding leases on our U.S. oil reserves to allow for an expansion of oil exploration and oil production here. We need to build a lot more refineries. We also need to build nuclear power plants. It is despicable that the Europeans and the French have embraced nuclear power and are now being less reliant on foreign oil because they've embraced nuclear power. And we have been stigmatized by a movie that was done by a traitor over 20 years ago, and we have failed to do that here. Nuclear power is the way to go. We need to expand it, and we need to expand our use of local domestic oil and gas reserves. That's how we get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Antonori. Mr. Kelly, your rebuttal, please.
Drill here, drill now, and pay less. We have significantly more oil in this nation than Saudi Arabia. Start getting it. We have all the coal we could ever want. We have all the natural gas we could ever want. They estimate we have a 90 to 100-year supply of natural gas, and we also have all the uranium we could ever want for nuclear power. The truth is, and then once again, it's the good news, we live in a blessed nation with this many resources. All we have to do is go get them.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. McSally?
One thing you learn in the military is if you don't have a strategy, you don't know where you're going. So we do need a strategy that uses all the resources we have to get on the path to energy independence. And Jesse, we don't have more oil than Saudi Arabia. The $2 trillion you're talking about there, it's been cost prohibitive in order to actually get to it because we don't have those technologies yet. So we need those to be developed, and maybe you should use your GI Bill, go back and get a geology degree, and you can help with that. But I mean, the reality is that that's not available, so we need to be smart about having a strategy, and we need to understand that the cost of oil can also impact my growth.
Thank you, Ms. McSally. Mr. Sitton, your rebuttal.
Very difficult to respond to all that, but I will say this. I've earned my gray hair. I recall talking about the space age race when people thought it was impossible to put a man on the moon. Now we have these buses that went up and back called the shuttle system. I can't believe that we've gotten to a point in this country where we don't know that a free technology race to make the new fuels of the future. I did it the other night with guys, a product from coal from South Africa that can make a clean burning fuel, compressed natural gas. Let the market go crazy on it. We will have plenty of it. Plenty of it.
Thank you, Mr. Sitton.
My next question is for you, Mr. Kelly. In light of recent bloodshed in Syria, should the U.S. consider intervention if the proposed ceasefire should fall through?
Actually, no. I do not believe we should get involved in Syria right now. Last time I checked, the rebels that were facing off against Syria's horrible government, they do have a horrible government. The rebels are not waving American flags. We continue to back rebels in nations that don't support America. I don't necessarily believe the next terrible government will be better than the one they currently have. And Syria is an enemy of the United States of America. They funded and backed several terrorist groups which were harming our troops in Iraq, so I believe Syria, we should always keep our eye on them, but that does not mean backing any rebel group that will attempt to take care of the horrible government they have.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. McSally, your rebuttal.
We have got to be shrewd about understanding where our national interests are and protecting them. It is in our interest that the Assad regime fall, but it doesn't mean we need to necessarily get involved. They are the closest and only ally of Iran, which right now is on its way to trying to get a nuclear weapon and is fighting proxy wars all over the world. So we need to watch it, we need to be leading into it, we need to be diplomatically engaging, because if Assad falls, that's good for us, because Iran loses its best friend and its road to funding Hezbollah and Hamas, but we shouldn't be getting American troops involved, absolutely not.
Thank you, Ms. McSally. Mr. Sitton.
It would be nice to have Mr. Assad leave, perhaps the planet, but we don't know who's going to replace him. And that's one of the problems we have when we play Russian roulette with these other countries, particularly in the Middle East. I would never, ever support engaging our troops, our Marines, our sailors, our soldiers, our airmen, anywhere in the world without a clear military objective, one that prepared to win, that is in the best interest of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Sitton.
You know, the answer is no. Look at what happened in Egypt. We thought we were enabling sort of a rise of democracy, and what did we get? We got the Muslim Brotherhood elected to parliament there, and what was their first vote? Their first vote was to vote to get rid of Israel. That's what we got in Egypt now. You've got to be careful what you ask for. We got to quit sticking our nose in places that do not have any direct national security interest, and Syria does not have a national security interest. We should stay out of it.
Thank you, Mr. Antonori.
My next question is for you, Ms. McSally. When elected, how would you reduce gridlock in Congress?
Yeah. Everybody who thinks gridlock's in Congress, say amen, right? Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. I mean, we have got to get past the demonizing and get past the divisiveness. I don't know about you, but I've been disgusted with that. We just can't get anything done. We're going to have ideological and philosophical differences, but if you look back to the time of Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, I mean, Ronald Reagan is just a great example about being strong and showing leadership and getting things done while he was disagreeing with Tip O'Neill. So in Congress,